Well, the National Security Analyst Arash Aramesh joins me now live from San Francisco. Arash, your reaction to the violence that we've seen on the streets of Ferguson?
I'm actually in Los Angeles tonight, but unfortunately, I'd have to report from LA that violence has erupted in many places, including Ferguson, Missouri, other parts of Missouri. There are reports that clashes have broken out in parts of New York and other cities. The parents of Michael Brown did and said the right thing, and they urged for calm, and they urged for a nonviolent protest to this decision today by the grand jury. Let me very briefly explain to you what a grand jury is. This is not a jury as you would know in a trial. A jury, a normal typical jury, is one that decides after a trial whether one is guilty or not guilty. A grand jury, in this case, a grand jury in Missouri composed of 12 individuals, 9 of whom were white, 3 were black, makes a decision after witnessing after viewing and reviewing a lot of the facts and the evidence provided to them in an adversarial fashion, whether to indict a particular person or not. In this case, you would need 9 votes to indict Officer Wilson. Obviously, they didn't have 9 votes, and an indictment was not handed out. This is not a not guilty verdict. Again, Attorney General Eric Holder said that the civil rights investigation portion of this is going to go on. To convict someone for a civil rights violation in this country, you have to reach a pretty high bar, and the legal bar is pretty high. But Attorney General Holder has promised to do that and go forward with a civil rights investigation as it continues. But again, the most important thing right now is this: a young man is dead. And a young officer has shot him. And the lives of 2 young men have changed forever. One is dead, and one's life has changed forever. And the only thing that could make things worse is breaking windows and causing more death and destruction in major cities or small cities. And this is not South Africa. I do not like to hear this sort of rhetoric that race relations in America are so tense. Yes, we have our problems. There is no doubt. Yes, we have our tensions. There is no doubt. There is inequality. I'm an American of Middle Eastern descent. I'm an Iranian American. I know what it's like to be on the plane and feel somewhat unwelcomed at times. I can't speak for black men in this country, though. I can't. So there's no way that I can possibly understand the pain and the agony that friends of Michael Brown, the people who share the same skin color as Michael Brown, are feeling in this country. Nor can I say the same thing about people and supporters and Darrell Wilson, Officer Wilson, and people who support him. And so it's a sad day. But again, this is the United States of America. This is not apartheid South Africa. And I'm very proud to live in a country where the justice system, with all its flaws, all its many, many, many flaws, still functions somewhat decently. So yes, I disagree with not handing out an indictment tonight, again, but I didn't see the evidence. I was not on the grand jury. I wish things were better. I wish this young man had never gotten shot. But I'm not going to go as far as calling America a state in perpetual race war, and that is just not the case. We have plenty to work on, and there's plenty of inequality, racial inequality, gender inequality, sexual inequality that has to get fixed in this country. But I just have to say it's a sad night. The only thing that could make it even sadder is loss of more innocent life tonight in the hands of law enforcement officers or protesters. So I urge everybody again to be cool and be calm and respect the blood that has been shed, and that's Michael Brown's life that's been spared. So
yeah, Arash, President Obama saying just in the last couple of hours that enormous progress has been made in race relations in the country. But do you think there's also been there's a simmering undercurrent, if you like, that's just been brushed aside for too long, and this is now going to play out in what could well turn into a national crisis if we see not just riots in Ferguson, but as you say, from coast to coast as well?
It could. I mean, I can't tell you at this point whether we're going to have riots from Miami to Seattle or from Boston to San Diego. I can't tell you that. But have things gotten better in this country? Absolutely. We have a president of African background. You know, a Kenyan father, a white mother, is an African-American president. But what's important is that he's an American president. Yes, we've come a long way since the days of Jim Crow, since, you know, the days that African Americans in this country did not have equal rights. They could not even go to a white lunch counter. Yes, we've come a long way in a country where immigrants have built this beautiful country, and, you know, we have members, we have Latino members, Asian American members, African American members, Middle Eastern American members. I'm probably missing out a lot of ethnic groups here who are represented on the Capitol Hill. They have served in the cabinet. Long story short, my point is this: we've come a long way to make things better in this country. This is not the America of the 1950s. This is not even the America of the 1990s, for God's sake. The amount of progress we've made in terms of, you know, equality for same-sex couples has been enormous in the past 20 years. However, are we perfect? No, we're not. We're far from perfect. Incidents such as, you know, the incident with Trayvon Martin last year in Florida, the incident with Michael Brown this year in Missouri, it shows that we have a mountain to climb in terms of race relation in this country. But again, we've done a very good job. We've come a long way since many, many years ago, but it's not enough. It's always going to be an ongoing battle. It's always going to be an ongoing uphill struggle. But I'm sure we'll get better as time goes by. Again, my focus is this: that tonight, nothing is going to bring back Michael Brown to his family. Nothing is going to bring back Trayvon Martin to his family. The only thing is to preserve life. So if violence erupts and more life is lost, that won't help anybody. It would just make matters worse.
Arash, you're talking about the progress that has been made, and quite rightly so that you mentioned that. But, you know, much of the criticism in the immediate aftermath of Michael Brown's death was not just the fact that his life had been taken so tragically in the first place, but was the fact that the protests that erupted afterwards were slammed down so in such a heavy-handed manner, certainly perceived by many people, by the police, that tear gas was used, rubber bullets were used, that armoured vehicles were immediately on the streets. And this is a police force, at least in Ferguson, that is predominantly white, monitoring a community which is predominantly black. I mean, it's just a recipe for disaster, isn't it?
You know, to be honest with you, before this happened, I'd never heard of Ferguson, Missouri. And I travel very frequently, and I'm very aware of the American geography. I'd never heard of Ferguson, Missouri. So to use such heavy-handed measures to calm down a crowd of protesters, it probably calls into question some of those law enforcement methods. And the police chief eventually has to answer for those. But I wasn't there, so I'm not sure exactly how many of those protesters were carrying items that were deemed to be, you know, of a threatening nature to peace officers. But yes, reports that we got, the very same reports that you read in the aftermath of the Michael Brown shooting, I read them too, and they all seemed to be complaining of the same problem, and that was sort of measures taken by police officers that not only, you know, didn't solve the problem, but added more fuel to the fire. You know, bringing in automatic assault rifles, pointing it at crowds. That just antagonizes people. There are many, the vast majority of law enforcement in this country are hardworking people, and it just pains me to see that the actions of a few dealing with protesters can taint the image of law enforcement in this country. But they are professionals, and we have very, very high expectations of our peace officers. And when they are sent, when they're dispatched to deal with a crowd of rioters and a crowd of protesters, they have to deal accordingly. They can't use excessive force. We have laws in this country that protect both, you know, American citizens, civilians, and police officers. So all of this has to be investigated. You know, I'm a student of the law. I'm a lawyer by training, but I'm always very, very cautious to pass judgment when I haven't examined all the evidence very carefully. And in this case, if you're not one of the 12 members of the jury, of that grand jury, you really, and plus other people who were present, you haven't really been given an opportunity to examine all the facets of this case. On the other hand, what we saw, we all witnessed on TV, some of the heavy-handed measures of police officers in Ferguson. And yeah, there were some of them were questionable. There's no doubt. But let me address a bigger problem here, and that's the problem of so much violence in our society. And while I'm proud that we've done so well and we've made such progress in race relations in this country, we've made such progress in economic equality in this country, and we still have to do a lot more work. But there's a problem of violence. The fact that we have so many gun deaths in this country annually. A lot of them are suicides, but still we have the highest rate of gun deaths in this country. The fact that we have urban warfare in some of our streets between organized gangs. The fact that police officers fear for their lives so badly that they have to, use such harsh measures sometimes to arrest or detain suspects, or sometimes to just kill them. The fact that a lot of people my age never had the opportunity to get a good education. They lived in impoverished, destitute neighborhoods, and their role models were never people to look up to. So these are the core issues to address. Yes, and in a city like Ferguson, Missouri, when you have a predominantly African-American population and you have, I think, 4, maybe 5 African-American officers on the entire force, well, probably common sense would tell us that a successful police force does very well when people represent that community, when its officers represent that community. So again, it's a very sad night for many reasons, but it's not the first time this has happened here. Unfortunately, I'd like it to be the last time it happens, but the only thing that could make matters worse is more violence. And we'll just have to wait and see what happens with civil rights action. And again, I do not want my words to be misinterpreted. No one knows really what happened unless you were on the grand jury. Michael Brown's beautiful life has been lost, and Darrell Wilson, his life will never be the same. Trayvon Martin's life was lost, and his killer's life will never be the same. And our society will never be the same. And these cleavages, these grievances, these painful moments, they may happen over the course of a 20-second altercation, but they leave a very, very lasting scar on the soul of our society. And it's painful. It's just painful to watch.
Arash Aramesh, it's always great to speak to you. Thank you for that analysis and all your reaction to the pictures that we're seeing live from Ferguson, Missouri at the moment. There are police on the streets there, riot police. We've also seen burning buildings. We've seen looting as well. It certainly looks like looting. And we've seen what the family of Michael Brown will have always called for and what they've always wanted, which is peaceful protest. So a mixed picture at the moment on the ground, and full coverage, continuing coverage coming up after this short break.